On my journey of figuring out what was causing my hormonal acne, I found a lot of different misconceptions I had about my cycle, and here's a few that really stood out to me. Starting off strong with what I think is probably the biggest misconception that we have about our cycle, and that is that our cycle is only about reproduction. As someone that doesn't want children, I feel like having have known this, it would have really helped the relationship that I had with my body growing up. But essentially, our two main hormones that we have in our cycle, estrogen and progesterone, both of these impact things like our bone health, cardiovascular health, breast health, mental health, and so many other things that we haven't even learned about yet because our health is still so under researched. Continuing on with the conversation that our cycle is so much more than just for reproduction, is the misconception that every cycle we ovulate. Now, the reason that we care about ovulation in general is because through ovulation is how we enter the next phase of our cycle, the luteal phase. It is how we produce progesterone. And if we're not ovulating, that means that we're not entering the luteal phase. Now, ovulation can be delayed by things like chronic stress, illness, nutrient deficiencies. All of these things can over time lead to things like estrogen dominance, which then leads us to the third most common misconception that we have, and that is that our periods can be late. And if you grew up with irregular cycles like I did, then it really became anxiety inducing because it was hard to know when your period would come, if it was going to be quote unquote earlier or quote unquote later. But in reality, our periods are never actually late. Now, our cycle can be divided into two main phases, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. Now, the luteal phase itself can only go a max of 16 days. But on the other hand, the follicular phase is up until ovulation occurs. But in instances where ovulation is delayed or pushed back, that then lengthens the follicular phase, which would then in turn would lengthen the full rest of your cycle. So it's not so much that your period is quote unquote late, but it's actually that the follicular phase got longer, so more time was spent producing estrogen, ovulation occurred, and then we entered the luteal phase. Unfortunately, we still live in a time where our health is under researched and it's also not really taught either, which is how these misconceptions can become so common, which is why it's so important to learn about our health and also make this knowledge more mainstream.